There are rules. The FBI spent decades writing them. Profiling serial killers is based on patterns. Killers strike close to home. They kill people they know. Or at least, they target a specific type of victim. They have a motive. They have a pattern. They have a signature. But, what happens when someone comes along who has studied those rules, down to the last detail? What happens when a monster emerges, who has read the exact same manuals as the agents hunting him, and decided to use them against them? This is not a story of a crime of passion. This is not a story of madness. This is a story about a ghost in the machine. About a man who turned the hunt into perfect, cold logistics. His name was Israel Keyes. And he is the reason the FBI admits today, that some nightmares, are simply invisible. Imagine this scenario. An ordinary man walks into a local hardware store. He buys plastic buckets, a shovel, guns, silencers, duct tape, and chemicals to dissolve flesh. Then he travels to a completely different state. He finds an isolated forest. And digs a hole. He seals the bucket. Buries it in the ground. And walks away. Forgets about it. For years. These were his murder kits. Keyes buried them all across the United States. They waited in the dark, beneath the earth, like ticking time bombs. And then, years later, whenever he felt the urge, the process would begin. His method was terrifyingly complex. Designed exclusively with one goal, to completely sever any logical connection between himself and the victim. Keyes would buy a plane ticket to a city hundreds of miles away from his actual target. He would turn off his cell phone. Pay for a rental car in cash. And then he would drive, 10, 12, 15 hours in total silence. With no plan of who to kill. No specific target. He would drive to the location where he had buried his kit years prior. He would unearth his weapons. And the hunt would begin. Random victims. Random houses. Random cities. When he was done, he would rebury the kit in a new location. Get back in his car. Drive to a completely different state. Board a plane. And return home to his family, as the perfect neighbor. The perfect father. Zero traces. Zero motives. Zero witnesses. June 2011, Essex, Vermont. Keyes flies from Alaska to Chicago. In a rented sedan, he drives over 1,000 miles to Vermont. He locates an old kit hidden near a lake. That night, he chooses a random house. Inside, Bill and Lorraine Courier are sleeping. An ordinary married couple. People who had never crossed paths with him in their entire lives. Keyes cuts the phone lines. He breaks in. What happened that night, in an abandoned farmhouse not far from their home, is too dark even for the most seasoned investigators. And when he was finished, he simply vanished. Leaving detectives to stumble in the dark for months, searching for enemies and motives of a couple that simply didn't exist. Because the killer was already on the other side of the continent long ago. But, every monster, no matter how intelligent, eventually makes a mistake. Either they become too overconfident. Or they become lazy. February 2012, Anchorage, Alaska. Keyes decides to break his most sacred rule. The rule that had kept him out of prison for years. He decides to kill, close to home. 18-year-old Samantha Koenig was working in a small, isolated coffee shack. It was a dark, freezing winter night. Surveillance cameras caught a shadow entering the shack. And Samantha, held at gunpoint, walking out with him into the night. What followed, is one of the most chilling details in modern criminal history. Keyes murdered her, and froze her body in a shed right next to his house. Afterward, with his daughter and girlfriend, he departs on a luxury cruise. drinking cocktails in the sun. 2 weeks later, he returns home. Samantha's body was completely frozen. He took her out. Applied makeup to her pale face. With a needle and thread, he sewed her eyelids to keep her eyes wide open. He placed a daily newspaper next to her head, and took a photograph. That photograph, a picture of a dead, frozen girl made to look alive, was sent to her family. Demanding a ransom for a soul that had already left this world long ago. And that was the beginning of his end. He got the money. But, he paid the price for his own arrogance. He started using her debit card. He thought he could outsmart the banking system the same way he outsmarted the FBI. He traveled across the American South, withdrawing cash at ATMs in Texas. Cameras caught a white Ford Focus. And a face hidden beneath a hood. March 13, 2012. In Lufkin, Texas, police pull over a vehicle. Sitting behind the wheel was Israel Keys. Cash. Guns. Masks. Everything was there. What followed in those FBI interrogation rooms was a psychological war. Keys wasn't a typical prisoner. He controlled the room. He drip-fed them information. Investigators sat across from the coldest man they had ever seen. For every confession of a new murder, he demanded a coffee. He demanded a cigar. He laughed while describing the logistics of death. He confessed to 3 murders. And then he began to hint that there were more. Many more. He hinted at 11 victims. 11 lives. Across America. The FBI was in a race against time. They had to find the locations of the remaining murder kits. They had to get the names. But Keys had the final move. On December 1, 2012. In his jail cell in Alaska. Israel Keys found a razor blade he had hidden inside a pencil. Guards found him in a pool of blood. Beneath his body, lay a crumpled piece of paper. It was a chilling, dark poem. No apologies. No remorse. Just an ode to the darkness he carried within him. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. In his own blood, on that paper, he drew 11 skulls. 11 victims. Who are they? Where are they? Israel Keys took that secret to his grave. He broke the system. He mocked the art of profiling. And in the end, he turned out the lights himself. And somewhere out there, in the quiet American forests, beneath the earth, his murder kits are still waiting.